What does strong actually look like at age 9 versus age 18?
Well, I think first of all, it's super cool as a young human that you're asking this question and reflecting on this because you're setting yourself onto a trajectory that frankly most people probably never get to. So that's rad. So strength at 9 years old looks a lot like developing interest, developing curiosity, developing routine, in other words, habit. Like just going to train or training at your house or training wherever and lifting or doing body weight movements, you are, and if you're into it and you love it, like you're developing something that could last your whole life. So strength as a 9-year-old looks a lot like that. The other thing that goes along with it is like strength as a 9-year-old hormonally, developmentally, like you don't have some of these things in developmental stages of a human being, of a human physiology, of a male human physiology, if you're a young male, or either sex really, that you'll have at 18. So a lot of those beginning things that you're building in terms of strength are neural. And what that means is you're developing the motor maps in your brain related to various movements. So if I squat or sprint or do push-ups, which is like a pressing movement, like I'm making those neural pathways in the brain thicker, wider, more clear with every training session I have. But I'm not necessarily like gonna build the size of the muscle. Yes, I'm getting stronger, but it's from a neural standpoint that I'm getting stronger. I'm building stronger connections. So will I grow my reps for something like push-ups? Yes. Will I grow my capacity to handle bigger weights? Yes. I'm gonna grow stronger. But aesthetically and in terms of the size of the muscle, I might not really notice those things until developmentally I get to a later stage. And I think it's important to throw into this conversation the idea of training age, because even if I'm older, like let's say I'm 18 years old and I start training for the first time, I've never trained before. I've never lifted weights. I've never done anything that's going to try to make my body adapt and get stronger to some type of stimulus. At 18 years old, if I'm doing that for the first time, my training age is effectively 0. Okay, my chronological age, my biological age might be 18, but my training age is 0. And what this means is I'm starting as a newbie in terms of lifting weights or training. I'm 0 years old. So if I'm 0 years old at 18, a lot of the things that are going to happen to me as far as strength increases initially are still going to be neural. I have to build the foundation. I have to build the structure or the base of this. So you gotta, like, if I'm building this humongous castle, think about this, the world's biggest castle you've ever seen, I have to lay an incredible foundation. So if I start laying that foundation at 9 years old and I build this foundation, it is so strong. In other words, I can increase the weight I can handle over time progressively. I can increase the amount of reps I can do for things progressively, and I can increase my technique with things. It gets better and better the more I practice things, especially if I'm into it. When I practice and develop a mind-muscle connection, like I am building this foundation, this structure for this gigantic, that's immensely strong. And then as I get into the later stages of my lifting age, when I'm like 3 or 4 or 5 years old in my lifting age, and combine that with I'm hormonally at 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, hormonally and developmentally speaking, now I have this amazing foundation from which this castle is going to be immense. And that castle is going to be so big at 18 years old, especially if I've started lifting and training like 6 years prior, or 7 years prior, because I've developed all these neural capacities. When I'm 18, like I'm just gonna I'm gonna start growing this castle like crazy. But if I'm 18 and I've never lifted before in my life, in other words, if I'm 18 years old and my chronological age is 18, but my lifting age or my training age is 0, effectively I am a complete novice, then I'm gonna have to build that structure, that base, that foundation of the castle. Like there's no getting around that. So even at 18, if I lift for 2 to 4 months or something, a lot of the beginning strength increases are going to be neurally. I might not notice the size of my muscles growing initially, but I am getting stronger initially. It's just those are coming from the neural standpoint, which has to come first. So I think Strength as a 9-year-old looks like you're gonna feel stronger. You're gonna feel great about your life. You're gonna start to develop these habits that are honestly like priceless, because they could carry you the rest of your life in terms of feeling good. Because remember, when you train and you're into it and you love it and you leave feeling like you did something cool, like like that is a psychological boost that is unduplicatable in other spheres of life. Like there's not a lot of ways you can get that you can get that from training. It's like the ultimate cup of coffee, or the walking around the block is like it just boosts your psychology just even from doing something like that. So if you learn to love lifting and it's cool and you feel good when you're done, that's a boost in your self-esteem. That's a boost in your ability for your brain to work in a functional way. That's a boost in your ability to be clear with others when you communicate. That's a boost in your your ability to think creatively and problem solve. Like it just brings the level up for everything else that you're gonna do after that. So you're building those habits right there. You're building the neural capacity. You're developing neurally. You're getting stronger, and that might be more reps. It might be better technique, like I said before. It might be stronger. You can handle more weight. You can do more with the curls over time. But when you're going to start seeing those size developments, the bigness of your muscles starting to grow, and so that's going to be later into your teens, later into, like, as you get closer to 16, 17, 18 years old, and then another shoot up in terms of like hormonally and stuff, in terms of how big you can get when you're in your early 20s and mid 20s and in those areas too. So it's going to look strength will look a lot different. But you're starting your training age earlier, which is amazing, because you're developing the clarity and the bigness of those maps in your brain related to those movements, which is priceless. Because I think you do learn. We're more plastic at a younger age. I think we'll learn those things better. We'll learn how to be more articulate with those movements, because in sport and things like that, like, you got to be able to move here and move there, and in very fine motor type of ways. And like, so you're learning all those in big ways at 9 years old, and you're going to get stronger. You just might not look it yet, and you're setting yourself up on a trajectory that is insane, I think, from a developmental perspective. So yeah, they'll look a lot different, and that's my less than 10-minute look at kind of how they might look different. I just think it's amazing that you're asking this type of question. It's awesome.